Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Bram, and today I'll be guiding you guys through yet another Flutter SDK tutorial. Now, the topic for today will be HTTP requests and REST API. For those who are unfamiliar with the REST API, it's basically an API which a lot of services provide to you to get back their data in JSON format easily. Now, we'll be using a website called jasonplaceholder.hypercode.com, which uses the REST API to give back some random JSON data. Now that data will look a little bit like this. So this is a basic JSON file. It's some sort of array with some objects in there. So of course we need to get that in our Flutter application, and we need to restructure it a little bit so we can use it. So I'll be running Flutter create right now and cleaning up the project a little bit, and I'll talk to you once that is done. See you guys in a second. All right, so I have cleaned up my main Dart file. I have written some code, and I came up with the most spectacular application in the world. Probably not. So I got a basic application with a button in the center. So let's take a real quick overview on how I did this. So we got my main methods, we got my run app function, and we are creating a new material app. And this new material app has a homepage, which is a homepage. This homepage is a stateful widget, and the state for this stateful widget is called homepage state, which has a scaffold, a center, and a raise button, which is all of this. But of course, if you're following this tutorial, I think you at least know a little bit about Flutter already, so I'm not gonna go in detail about that, of course. Now let's create our first HTTP request. Before we can do this, of course, we need to import some packages. So let's say package, and this will be the http.dart package, and let's import that as http. And we will be working with asynchronous functions, so let's import Dart async, the library for asynchronous functions. And I think that's it. Yeah. So let's now start creating our function to get the data. Now in my homepage state, I will create a new function, which will be called getData. Now this function is going to be a little bit different from normal functions that you write, because it's going to be asynchronous. Because of course we are getting data from the internet, which, if you're not having the best internet connection, could take some time. So we need to wait for it. So it's going to be asynchronous. And we're going to promise that at the end of the function, we will return something. So when it's done, we will return something. So to do that, we use a promise, or actually we use a future, future. And let's just return a string. So what this future is, so it's basically whenever our function is done, we will return a string, but we don't know when that is going to happen. But we promise that it's going to happen somewhere in the future. Cool. And this asynchronous is because it's asynchronous, of course. Now let's create a new variable, and let's call this response. It's going to be equal to http.get, because we are making a GET request. And first of all, don't forget the semicolon and also this URL. So first of all, this would not work even if we had the URL, because we need to wait for this function. So we need to add a wait over here, because we need to wait until we got the data. And now we can start adding our URL. Now this URL, of course, is going to be different for every single one of you, but the URL that I'll be using is going to be this one. So that is going to be the first parameter of this function. So it's going to be in a string form, something like this. And now some URLs will have some brackets like this or something else in the link in the URI. And that might throw some errors. So to resolve those, you simply do URI.encode full, and that should fix that. So if you have brackets or if you have any weird errors, that's probably the reason why. Now also some services, some REST APIs, some APIs require you to authenticate. So they require you to show that you are who you are with a key. So those keys usually go in the headers. So you place them in here, and it will look something like this: key, and then colon, and then over here you just type in your key. Now, of course, this is an open API. I can use it without a key, but if you have a key, you will put it in something like this. This keyword may differ a little bit, so be sure to take a look at the documentation for your API, but it will look something like this. Now, we will be using another header, which is going to be accept. And this header basically says that, okay, we only want to accept this type of format. So in this case, we want to accept JSON. So we're going to type application/JSON, and that will say, okay, we want to accept JSON files. And if we're not getting a JSON file, something is odd, something is wrong in here. Awesome. Now, this is actually a full HTTP request, so we're basically done. We can now print out our response, and the response will be, will have a body. So we can do print response dot body, and that should work. Now, I used the keyword var for variable over here, but if you actually really want to know what type this response variable is, it's actually a HTTP dot it's request. So if you want to be really strict, oh, that didn't work actually. I'm sorry. HTTP.response, I'm sorry. So if you want to be really strict about that, you can put that in there. Awesome. So let's now refresh our application and see how we are getting the data. Or actually, let's first add this function to our onPressed listener for this button. So go to your raised button, onPressed. We want to get the data. Now let's refresh. And now whenever we press this button, hopefully we will get back some data. Awesome. So this data should look familiar because it's the exact same as this data, of course. But it's not quite usable yet because it's still in JSON format. So to actually convert this to a list, to something that we can use, we need to import another package. This package is going to be called Dart convert. And that should allow us to convert JSON to a list. Now, let's create a new variable. It's going to be of type list. Let's call this data. And this will be equal to JSON.decode, because we're decoding our JSON file. And we're, of course, decoding our response.body. Awesome. Now this will, if I print this out, this will look a little bit less readable, but it's usable, of course. So, let's try that. Let's delete this. Let's hot reload. Let's get the data. And now it's getting, we're still getting the data. It's a little bit less readable, but it's usable. So that's, that's a plus, of course. Now, it's not really readable, so I will be going over to my JSON file over here. And let's say that I would really like to get this title. So how would I do that? How would I actually access that specific data? Now, we know that this is element 0 and this is element 1 because we start counting from 1 and we are in some sort of array. So we already know that we should do, for our data, print data. And we want the second element, so 1. And now we want the title. So to get the title, we do actually the same thing. So square brackets, and we say title. Now we refresh this and press on get data. And now we see the title. So key est esse. I'm not the best in Latin, but let's take a look. Those two match. Awesome. So that's basically the basics of HTTP requests and the REST API. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Also, something that I want to mention is I used a stateful widget because I will be creating a follow-up video on how to actually get all of this data. So all of this data in a list view. So that will be the next tutorial. So I will add that in the comments down below once that's done. And yeah, that was actually the video for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.